Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, and my friends, today we are talking about ads, and specifically fighting game ads. There's been a lot of great memorable fighting game ads over the years, including this one you're seeing here, perhaps one of the most famous ever, the Mortal Monday ad. Celebrating that the home versions of Mortal Kombat 1 on Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Gear, and Game Boy were all dropping on the same day, September 13th, 1993. So this one's a classic, a true classic in every way. But there's a lot of, well, not so classic ones. Just kinda outright dumb and bad, really. Like how about this one here, featuring Paul Phoenix. This is an ad for Tekken 2. Like, some of it's good here. It's hyping up Paul, gives you a little bit of backstory of the character, and then tells you what Tekken's about, right? Oh, we have 23 characters, lots of stages, 3D animations, all sorts of good stuff. And then you immediately undercut it with this dumb schlock. Paul Phoenix is about to face 23 fighters. Who is the first person he should kill? His barber. And that, my friends, is 90s advertising to a T. So that said, basically this video exists to showcase you some of the sillier ads of fighting games throughout the ages. Because what was normal back in the day, well, that really doesn't cut the mustard anymore. Stuff like this was basically how video game advertising used to work back in the day. You put the sexy lady in the ad because most of the target audience at the time buying these magazines were anywhere from like 8 to 14 years old. And make sure you never forget the dick joke. The dick joke is really key for a lot of these ads. So starting off with something simple, Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter, right? This looks wholesome enough, this looks normal enough. Street Fighter generally doesn't have as crazy ads as something else. And in fact, a lot of times they have really cool and really catchy ads. Like this ad run for Super Street Fighter 4, I always thought all these ads were actually pretty incredible. But then you get weird, misleading stuff like this also for the original Street Fighter. Like, here's a nameless guy with a mullet fighting a street gang? Like, none of this appears in the actual game. But just a little misleading, I guess that's not too bad. Let's go a little crazier. How about Mortal Kombat? Mortal Kombat had a lot of pretty good ads back in the day. The whole Prepare Yourself line of ads, those were really, really good. But it also had stuff like this. Hey kids, come down to the arcade so Raiden and Kano can, like, steal your soul into the game dimension? And even though these kids look absolutely horrified, they want to go play a video game instead they're getting assaulted, there is one wholesome message to be found in the ad. Don't worry, Midway and Mortal Kombat proudly support the American teams in the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. Now how about we go into the deep end of the pool with a little domestic violence in a blood spatter font. This is how you sell Virtua Fighter, of course, naturally. Just a happy child and his father playing some wholesome Virtua Fighter with domestic violence written in blood directly above their heads. Admittedly, part of advertising is to be eye-catching, and I think this does that very well. And thankfully it shows a Lao versus Lao mirror match, and mirror matches back in the day were still a little bit of a celebration. They didn't happen in every game. If the kid was playing Wolf and ringed out dad with a giant swing, we might see some actual domestic violence. Sega was all about these kind of ads, by the way. This one here, well, speaks for itself. Using Mortal Kombat and Virtua Fighter to hype the launch of the Saturn? Sure. And, well, this kind of ad was very common back in the day. Let's put it that way. Whenever an ad got any kind of traction, all the other companies would do their best to vulture that kind of ad. This style of Clay Fighter ad, for example, here. So very much just ripping off the famous Mortal Kombat Prepare Yourself ad, doing their own take on the matter. Clay Fighter was a very silly fighting game franchise anyway, so no one really holds it against them. It was part of the charm, really. Although sometimes a little creatively bankrupt, I guess you could say. Like, hey, Terminator 2 is popular, so let's name the game after Terminator 2 and do all the advertising around it. C2 Judgment Clay. A lot of the fighting games of the era of the 90s, when they didn't have anything real to offer, comedy is always what they'd be going for, like this Balls 3D ad. Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat knew they had you, so they kept it a lot more classy. Like the Toshinden games, they didn't really have much, but they had a scantily clad woman with a whip, so almost all the advertising in all the game's history revolved around her. Sophia says spend your money to reserve a Sony PlayStation. Sophia says give your money to your local video game store and do it now. Sophia says get on your knees and bark like a dog. Now give Sophia a kiss. She didn't say Sophia says. Now she has to hurt you. Somebody probably got paid tens of thousands of dollars to come up with this ad, because we live in a world cursed by sin. Like any of the Battle Arena Toshinden ads back in the day, they're really only selling you two things. Another really big tactic back in the day was slamming other games, and for almost everyone, it was taking cheap shots at Street Fighter. To prepare for Eternal Champions, use Street Fighter 2 as your training wheels. Probably not much of a shocker to you, but Street Fighter 2 definitely has a much better legacy than Eternal Champions does. And to the one guy who just got mad and is about to write a comment in the YouTube comments, shut up, you know this game sucked. But this is how it was. You had to prove you were edgy, and with it, so much of the 90s, this is all it was about the posturing. Like, look at this basically ad. Like, I know it's the cover of EGM, but it's basically an ad. Primal Rage better than Mortal Kombat 2? Every fighting game had to be the Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat killer. Everything was about this, and it's not just like the games, it's also the systems. So the Neo Geo is the best forever. And Nintendo and Sega's dicks don't work. And the edginess doesn't go away just because it's the early 90s. We can go forward in time, and we have this. This lethal weapon just slipped through customs. They're saying this for one of those crappy late 90s Dragon Ball fighting games? This is awful. Like, is Goku a terrorist? The only good thing I could say in this ad's defense is, at very least, it came out before 9/11. But even then, the ad copy doubles down. How did this guy get through customs anyways? Late 90s edginess also here, clear as day for the original Guilty Gear. Kill your friends, guilt-free. This one made the rounds a little while ago because even at the time, Bill Clinton spoke out against this ad.
And here's one that's the most unbelievable of all. It says, kill your friends, guilt-free.
So Clinton, not a Guilty Gear fan, let's put it that way. Fighting game ads going on into the 2000s would get a little bit more toned down, I guess you could say, because fighting games as a whole were toned down. Throughout the 90s, fighting games was the #1 genre of all of video gaming. And with the decline of arcade culture and some other factors, well, they stopped being the big dog around town. And when there's less of them, they get less crazy trying to get your eyeballs for attention because now you're split between less games. That said, there's plenty of embarrassing ones here. Let me show you the ad that did so much damage to the Dead or Alive franchise, it made so many people embarrassed to be a fan. I'll play it in its entirety.
Well, I only play for the fighting. I appreciate the expansive multi-tier environments and the 16 characters with the pixel shading bump mapping and the rich plot development. Seriously, why else would I play it? She kicks eye. Rated T for teen.
Like, yeah, Dead or Alive is not short on the sexy lady characters, for sure, absolutely, right? But it makes it look like every Dead or Alive fan is a brain-dead pervert. And as someone who's actually a big fan of the Dead or Alive franchise, I feel like that one ad has done irrevocable damage to the entire series. But my friends, that's our look into the very strange world of fighting game ads. Video game ads as a whole, especially the ones in the 90s, are pretty crazy, but I just feel like fighting game ones, they stand out just a little bit more. If you got any favorite ads yourself from back in the day, be they, decent or just outright insane like some of these ones, feel free to post them in the comments below. But otherwise, well, I guess we're at the end of the video, so thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.